Ian, game preservation.
Gotta work, boy.
2020 year, it was the year for game preservation. Almost every week we're talking about game preservation in one aspect or another.
I want to see you work, boy.
This is Ian's wheelhouse right here.
This is very neat. So we saw a flash of this, I think, in 2016. We may have even brought it up briefly. There was a information about the WorkBoy was talked about, but it has been found. The WorkBoy is it was going to be a small peripheral that looked like a little keyboard about the size of what looks like a novel that would plug into your Game Boy through a the link cable port, and it would run a cartridge of software apps, basically turning your Game Boy into a little PDA, or what it would have been comparable to back then would have been like one of those little Palm computers.
For those out there who aren't 40 like me and Ian, a PDA is a personal digital assistant.
It was kind of the bridge between regular cell phones and smartphones when they were two separate items.
No, they came out. The people had them in the 90s, even before smartphones.
Yeah, they did.
Yes. It's a personal device. It was small enough to carry around, but you also put it on your desk, and sometimes they had a stylus, and you had little functionalities of the things that you can do on the go, like contact lists and schedule things and calculators and organizers. It was like your mini personal kind of mini computer, but it couldn't do a lot of computing.
It was
stuff.
an address book.
Yeah.
It's an electronic address book. It's basically what it was.
You got a small soiree of little apps in there, basically.
So this would have added, a calculator, a record keeper. It had actually had an onboard thermometer and temperature reader.
That's weird.
It could do currency exchange.
A little translator thing, kind of, in terms of like you put in phrases.
Yep, simple translation. So it was finally tracked down. They contacted so it was shown in 1992. It never actually came out. It was going to be between $79 to $89. It never reached the public. One is that's really expensive. This would have been coming out around the time that the Game Boy would have been receiving a price cut to about $40 or $50, making this more expensive than the system itself.
This is like 92.
It ran on. Yeah,
92. It was originally planned to be released in late 92, early 93 for 79. Okay, let's see what $80 was in 93. While you go on.
Okay, so the guy who was looking, last name, what was his full name? I'm trying to find.
Well, this is Liam Robertson.
Oh yeah, video game historian Liam Robertson.
Yeah.
Was able to track down Eddie Gill, who was the architect of the WorkBoy. Discussed how it was being planned to release at the price point and the issues that kept it from releasing. He knew of two of the units. One was probably deep in vaults of Nintendo, and the other one was in possession of Frank Balluz, the founder of FabTech, so he was able to get a hold of him. Frank Balluz did not have a Game Boy to hook it up to, so he sent it to him. Problematically, it needs a cartridge software cartridge to run.
To run something, sure.
And they didn't have one, so he could connect it, but nothing would happen. Well, good news. Those huge Nintendo leaks that have been happening, they went and checked, and sure enough, they found the application ROM and burned it onto a cartridge and flipped it on, and sure enough, it works.
It's amazing.
Yeah. Very neat.
So in the video, Did You Know Gaming video, they show you going through the apps and going through the history of it. It's very thorough. But when you look at this, you realize why this failed. Or why this didn't come out, why they balked at it. When you look at the PDAs, I looked at the Wikipedia. They came out in the mid '80s, and they sold them probably well up until smartphones, because you couldn't do that stuff on a device like this.
That's what I was trying to say. Yeah. Smartphones essentially took cell phones and PDAs and combined them together.
Sure. So if I'm a business person, like a serious business person, and I want a PDA, I'm not screwing around with a Game Boy. Like, I'm not going to screw around with something that has a tiny, smaller little screen that eats batteries alive on top of it, and has this little keyboard that no longer makes it that portable anymore, because I gotta like put it down somewhere and set up the Game Boy. It's cumbersome. Like, it's a great idea, the software suite, to have if it's on anything but a Game Boy, because at that point it's not. you got to like hook it. Like it's not cumbersome. Like one little piece, like one little Palm Pilot. I can just go ding, ding, ding.
Yes,
ding.
the seemingly simple act of splitting it into two pieces suddenly makes it less attractive, I think.
Sure.
And while, yes, Game Boys were popular with everyone, including business people, playing Tetris and whatnot on there, for a little bit more money at this point, and, probably at this point, a sleeker design, you could get an actual PDA or palm top computer.
Yeah, because they were around everywhere in the early 90s. They were a thing. And you could like draw with them, and you could, you know what I mean, with the stylus. There was so much more you can do with an actual PDA. I'm trying to find the prices of what they were. But you can do a lot more with PDAs, even back then. I'm just trying to see what the costs were back there. Tandy had one the Tandy Z PDA from 92 was leagues ahead of what this offered, with a much bigger screen and a stylus on it, and I'm just trying to see what the prices were. And it had an x86 CPU in it as well. So it was powerful at the time. Apple had their own from 93 to 98. US Robotics had the actual Palm Pilot. They had those going on for years and years. A company called Handspring had them later. So the point is that it's kind of pricey versus what you get out of it. And at that point, you can probably just afford a real PDA. Right? If you're a business person, because you look at the price of this, this is going to be $80. In 93, that was $145. On top of the Game Boy, if you didn't have the Game Boy, you said it had a price reduction of $50. Then you're looking at, $220 or so, roughly? Something like that, $50, half of that. $225 if you're getting it on its surface. So unless you're appealing to people directly that already had the Game Boy, it's a non-deal.
Right. I think your target market is too small. The market of people that would have purchased it would have been too small. It was a neat idea, but I think it just, like a lot of neat ideas, who is this for?
Yeah. And then it looks like Eddie Gill, who worked on this, also tried to do one later for the Game Boy Advance, and that one never came to market either on there, unfortunately. So yeah, you get into a weird situation when you're trying to adapt something that's not what it's designed for to do something another product can do better.
Right.
That's what it comes down to.
And you always end up with stuff like this. You always end up with stuff like, hey, that's pretty cool, but it's still better to just do it with the other thing. It's like a TV tuner on a Game Gear. Like, okay, that's cool, but it looks like shit, and there's no real practical use for this.
Yeah, we'll get you a sewing machine with the Game Boy, and it's like, well, okay. If I'm into sewing machines, I don't need the gimmick of the Game Boy.
I think there is something neat about that, though, and that's programmable. But that was that's the only thing that even gave it a neater idea, or neater.
You're stretching
feature.
though at that point. You're starting to stretch a little bit. Yeah, but it's glad that it's found, that it's well documented, and at least someone used it to say, hey, it works here. We got it working here.
Documented.
Yeah, I'm screwing up my words today.
I'm falling all over my words.
Pecuniary.
Pecuniary.
New word. All right. So anything else to add here? It's an adorable idea.
Nah, it's cute. I'd love to see it in person.